Well, that's a big act to follow there. As you can see, our dogs are always in training. And my name is Jennifer Troy. I'm the executive director and founder of Pause for Learning. We're a small nonprofit in Minnesota based in St. Paul. Raven's taking a little break here. I'm here today with Patty Fitzgerald and her dog Raven and my dog Annie. We have a number of handlers and dogs that volunteer with us in schools and in colleges. And then we're also trained to respond to crisis and disaster. Our first response that we did was actually the bridge collapse. And when we responded with the bridge collapse, our role was to provide comfort care to those who were waiting word on their loved ones. We were at the Canine Assistance Center that was at the Holiday Inn originally and then moved over to Augsburg College. We partnered there with a number of organizations to provide comfort care for, again, people who are waiting word on their loved ones, as well as the relief workers that were coming in and needed a break. And as most of you know, being able to pet a dog when you're stressed or when you don't have words, the dogs provide the most beautiful care, and there are no words that are needed at those times. We love to be able to be that bridge for other organizations that can provide wonderful care for people, whether it's the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, NACAMA, any of the mental health professionals as well. What we found is that people will come up to the dogs and start a conversation or just sit quietly with them. So when we've been at other natural disasters rather than man-made, we find that people really enjoy the dogs, and the organizations that we partner with benefit as well, because people are tending to come near the dogs and have a conversation. Our handlers that are doing the disaster response are trained in incident command and other FEMA courses, as well as psychological first aid, compassion fatigue, and a number of other trainings that go beyond their therapy dog work. Fortunately, there aren't many crisis or man-made or natural disasters here in Minnesota or even around the country, fortunately. And so our dogs do a number of things when they're not responding to those. Their main work is working in schools and building relationships with students. So I see a group of students here. If we were to come to your school, we would partner with maybe a social worker, a counselor, a special educator, and we find it pretty important to work with those students who are struggling to connect to their school day. We see this as part of our preparedness work. When we can find the kids that are struggling the most to connect to their school day, to connect to an adult, to connect to their peers, those are the students that we're typically working with the most. And what we found is that attendance improves, conversations improve. We've had students tell us about another student that had a gun in the school. We've had students talk to us more about bullying and fighting that goes on. We've had students and staff members be able to help students that have a great deal of anxiety as well. We've had students that can't make it to class or have a hard time attending. So you imagine those students on a good day struggling. Imagine if their school was torn down by a tornado, which is what we ran into when we went to North Dakota. An F5 hit the school the day before school was to start. So you imagine all the teachers had their classrooms ready, all the students were ready to go, and the night before school started, an F5 leveled the school. When we went in to respond, the dogs are very interested in the horses right now, by the way. When we responded, the students at that school were on their 5th day, and they were doing day 1 over for the 5th time in a 3rd school site. They kept getting moved around. So you imagine the amount of stress that goes on for staff and students. What we were able to do is help to do some debriefings to help kids talk about their experience. And when we know that people are recovering well, their cognition improves, They connect better to their school day, and learning continues much more quickly. We found that when the dogs are there, that a sense of normalcy, a new normal, happens, and we're pretty thankful for that opportunity. We were also at the Cottonwood bus crash, where sadly there were 5 students that were killed in an unfortunate bus crash. We've been to other tornado sites and are on the school crisis response teams at Augsburg College, St. Paul Public Schools, and in a few schools in Minneapolis as well. So one of the fun things about what the dogs do, we have more than black Labradors, even though today that's who we have here. We have a little pug beagle named Hobson. He shoots baskets and rings bells and goes over jumps and does math problems. So you imagine a student that's having a hard time connecting to their school day or to an adult or talking about a hard experience. Boy, they can sure tell the dog their story. Or if we have a dog that has a story of their own of being rescued and having a hard start themselves, we can help students to know that their story doesn't end where it is right now, that there are many chapters left to their lives, and that they have some control and say over that. And we want to partner with schools to help their stories and their dreams have a better possibility, a better ending. So we're glad to be a part of kids' stories, staff stories, and even the feedback that we got after the bridge collapse was very positive from other organizations and individuals during that sad event. We're open to lots of questions if you'd like. Does anybody have any questions for us? Oh, yes. Hi. Okay, why does she have this harness on? You know, Annie doesn't always wear this harness. She wears it when she's responding to a crisis or disaster. It helps her to be seen. Sometimes it's rare, but there have been times when we've been at house fires and things like that where people need to know that she's a working dog and she needs to be able to be seen. But when she's in schools, she usually wears her bandana, and she has bookmarks, and Raven has business cards and bookmarks. We could probably get some to you inside afterwards. So that's a great question. Did I answer it okay? All right. You have another one? You have a question? I'm sorry. Good question. You know, tornadoes don't happen often at all. They rarely happen. And you're probably in a really safe place right now, right? Yep. So, but if a tornado ever did happen, if you were at school afterwards, would you want a dog to come there to be able to talk to the dog? Would you be happier at school if you felt a little afraid? You know, that's a great question. You know, we were at after the Hugo tornado, we partnered with an elementary school there for almost 2 years there. And what we found was that there were students that struggled to get through their day, even on a cloudy day. So we partnered with psychologists, social workers, the school principals, teachers, just to help their cognition and comfort level improve and to help them to connect to their school day again, which is a tough thing to do when your world has been turned upside down. The staff had their world turned upside down as well. Many of them lost their homes in the Hugo tornado. So we were partnering with them and providing support as well. Other questions? Yes? Yes, that's a great question. The question was, do handlers work with specific dogs? The wonderful thing about Pause for Learning is that we have dogs that live with their handlers. They are spoiled as any dog can be when they're at home. I have 3 other dogs at home. Patty, you have 2 other dogs at home, and they run and play and sleep on beds and get lots of good time off. We find that relationship's pretty important. It helps their longevity in doing this work, because dogs can get compassion fatigue just as responders can. So we work with the dogs quite a bit about that, and what's wonderful about dogs is they know how to get their stress out. So after they're working, they can seem very tired, but you get them home and they're running and playing and having a good time. So, other questions? No? Okay. Well, if you'd like to know more about Pause for Learning, we have a booth just inside the doors here. We are also on Facebook, and we have a website, pauseforlearning.org. And we'd love your support. If you'd ever want to volunteer or work with us, or would like us to come to your school, or know of a crisis event where you'd like to call us in, our information is inside. We also have some of our cards with us right now. Thanks so much for having us. It's a beautiful day. All right.